FOG number 75 is Billy Moore. Billy played 17 games for Queensland, making his debut in 1992, scoring the Maroons' only try in a 5-4 win. Billy grew up in Wallangarra and played his junior football with the Wallangarra Bulls. In 1989, Billy made the move to Sydney, where he joined the North Sydney Bears, and he was a member of their reserve grade premiership winning side before going on to play 211 games for the club. In 2006, Billy was named in the North Sydney Team of the Century.
Billy Moore, thanks for your time.
Pleasure.
What does it mean to you to be a FOG?
Well, to frame it, there was three things I wanted to be as a kid. I wanted to be a fighter pilot, but I wasn't smart enough. I wanted to play Origin. I said that to my mum and dad on the lounge room floor in Wallangarra in 1980 when I saw Beatson take the field. And then I wanted to be a Jedi Knight. So someone lied about the Jedi Knight thing. So this is one of the greatest things I could ever achieve. And as a kid, that's all I wanted. I never thought about playing first grade. I never thought about playing for Australia. All I wanted to do was play for Queensland. And that was my dream.
Well, how does a kid from Wallangarra end up doing that? Now, your mum had to go to Tenterfield Hospital because Stanthorpe was too far away.
Correct.
Right, but you got back home pretty quickly. Tell us about life growing up in Wallangarra.
So Wallangarra, the most southern town in Queensland, was a town which was, as a kid growing up, big meatworks. Anderson's Meatworks, one of the biggest in Queensland at the time, I think. 600 workers. So I grew up, my dad was a meat worker, mum was a school teacher, had three older brothers, didn't have a great deal of money, but my cousins were there. It was a wholesome upbringing in a little country town, and sport was everything. So rugby league was it in the winter, cricket and tennis in the summer. So all I ever wanted was to beat my brothers. So I had that tenacious, always the littlest one, always forgot about, always disregarded. A little bit like Queensland, New South Wales, if you want to picture that up a little bit. And for me, the opportunity to grow and develop behind them, I'm a great watcher, great learner. I want to know what you know that I don't. I want to know how you did that and I didn't. So I always watched them, and they were great players in their own respect. But I think when it fundamentally come to it, I wanted it that bad. I probably sacrificed a lot more. And when the chance came, I didn't play representative football until I was in my last year at high school. And I started training when I was 15. The club at Wallangarra folded when the meatwork shut down, and I would have been about 7. So the nearest town again was Tenterfield, so we ended up playing there. And when I was 15, I got given I earned the right for a scholarship to go to this camp in Armidale. It was a rugby league camp which went, I think, for about 10 or so years, and there were 700 of the best rugby players from Australia and New Zealand there, and they had all these kids that were Australian schoolboys there and underage players, 15, 16, 17. And I was one of them that was there, but I hadn't played rep football. And at the end of the camp, Wayne Bennett was the head coach overseeing everything. Graham Lowe was there, Wayne Pearce was there, Alan Wilson was there, these players, the superstars. I got given this generic training program. I took it back to Wallangarra as a 15-year-old kid, and I did it. I followed it virtually every day as a 15-year-old. Didn't play rep football. 16-year-old, didn't play rep football. 17-year-old, 2.5 years of the physiological change of training, kicked into gear, and that year I went away. Within 10 weeks I went from not playing representative football to playing in the Australian final. And that day, Sydney Football Stadium, we played the curtain raiser to the Australia-Great Britain test in 1988. Jacko played 5'8". I remember that because Wally was injured. Anyway, I played the game prior and I got man of the match. 34 kids played, 33 were signed except me. I come off the field and got man of the match, and Brisbane Broncos, Parramatta Eels, Penrith Panthers and North Sydney Bears all offered me contracts off the back of that game. And my mum was my manager and she sent me to North Sydney.
Why?
Great question. The reason she said, I asked her 2 years later. She goes, son, the reason I sent you to North was twofold. One, to know how good you were. I thought, pretty pragmatic. She goes, you hadn't played rep football till that year, so I didn't know how good you were. Brisbane, Penrith, Parramatta are the biggest junior bases in the world. They've got 20 of you. She knew that without ever being exposed to the rugby league world. And she was so right. I went to Norse and they had one of me and they looked after me. She goes, the other reason I sent you to Norse, she goes, I knew they weren't that good. So your opportunity was there. I played first grade second week as a 17-and-a-half-year-old. Got belted against Penrith at Penrith Park. Because I went though and joined the North Sydney family, that is the reason I'm sitting here talking to you.
Well, I was going to say, you joined Norse at a good time. I know for a lot of clubs, celebrating a reserve grade premiership may not be great, but in 1999, and I know because I was there, the Bears won a title for the first time in over 40 years. There were tears back at the Leagues Club. But you, in all seriousness, were arriving at a time when the club was evolving and developing, and players that have been signed in recent years, a lot of them, Billy, Queenslanders, as you well know, were starting to reach their potential.
Yeah, there's an alignment between Queensland and the Bears, and I think of some of the great names that have come from Queensland that have played there. Tony Ray, Les Kiss, Martin Bella, the French brothers. There was Gary Larson, Tony Hearn, Benny Eichen, Brett Dallas, the list goes on and on. Gavin Jones.
Gary Smith.
Yeah, Gary Smith. Superstars, my heroes. So there's a great symmetry there. So I went there, but you're right, in 89, so I played in that grand final. We beat Parramatta. We got changed down at North Sydney, at the Sydney Cricket Ground, because the 21s and then the first grade were playing. So it's 1989. Won the game as an 18-year-old. Everyone jumps on the bus to go back to the Leagues Club to celebrate the 40 years. I said, no, I'm not going to go back yet. They said, what do you mean you're not going back yet? I said, I want to go back in and watch the real game. So I went back in and watched the greatest grand final of all time between Balmain and Canberra. And I sat in the stands with my mum and watched it. And then I went back and celebrated, had a great time. But that is my initiation into the Sydney Rugby League. I played 3 first grade games that year before I turned 18. And then I went and played and won the reserve grade final. Then the next year, 1990, North bought Pat Jarvis. And we had this great batch of young kids, David Fairley, David Hall, Jason Martin, myself. We all come through together. Then the following year, we bought the late great Peter Jackson, one of the greatest Queenslanders and one of the great Bears of all time. And we bought the Maltese Falcon, Mario Fennick. They gave us belief, steel, X Factor, coupled together over the next 10 years. I think I played 8 semi-final series, 4 preliminary finals. Unfortunately, we got beaten all of them, but that's, in a nutshell, the evolution of where I came from and the pathway.
You're making me tear up. You've achieved so much in the game. How does it weigh the fact that Norse got so close, yet have nothing to show for those years? How does that still weigh on the shoulders?
Painful. Yeah. Look, I feel for all the Bears fans that had to put through. They got put through it. We got put through as players, but these fans had to put up whether they got ridiculed. At least we had the capability of decision in our hands, and we weren't good enough on the day. I asked the question why, because I love to think and try and process. I always put it down to this, and my former teammates have different reasons. We never got better in August as a club. We often 1, 2, 3 on the premiership table coming into August and then into September. And I think that was the key fundamental for us, is by not getting better when it mattered the most. I've got this saying, the hardest thing to defend against is something you've never seen. When I look at the great clubs that have won multiple premierships, they continually improve, and they do what they do well, but they do it the best they've ever done it on the biggest stage, on the biggest day. We probably never played our best when it mattered the most.
So a young bloke from Wallangarra ends up in Sydney, wins a premiership in 1989 in the reserve grade, but it's still a premiership. And then a couple of years later, you're playing Origin. You get the call up. It must have been a bit of a whirlwind.
Oh, phenomenal. So I said it was my dream to play Origin. and Norse gave me that opportunity. That's why I'm always thankful to them. But to actually, when I got the phone call, so the storyline, I was boxing at the Johnny Lewis gym in Newtown Police Boys Club, because Pat Jarvis took me there because he saw me have a fight with Steve Blocker Roach. And he goes, "You're hopeless." Blocker gave me 10 stitches there and there. So he took me to the gym, which Blocker Roach boxed at as well, which Pat never told me that until I turned up. But I spent 4 years there, and I under Johnny Lewis, one of my heroes, one of my mentors, and what made me also sit here with someone like Johnny Lewis, because he took me from average to good because I got fit. But Jeff Fennick was there, Costa Zoo was there, you know, the superstars. But I finished boxing one day, and I've gone back to the house I was staying at North Sydney, opposite the Lees Club. And my mum had come down from Wallangarra. She caught the Greyhound bus down, and she stayed with me that time. The club got the phone call from the QRL, and then they've rung the house to speak to me, and I got my mum. And that was the great thing, was she took the phone call. She was the one who found out I played for Queensland. And when I come through the door after this boxing session, she jumped at me. She was that excited for me and for all the family, that dream that I'd had, they'd all played a part in it, was realised. So I'll never forget that, just the look on her face when she just jumped at me. Thank God I caught her, because there was 8 steps down from there. But yeah, that was to me a culmination of a journey that started when I was 15. I got to realise that dream when I turned 21 in that first camp.
What was the reality like compared to the dream?
Exactly as I thought it would be. It was the greatest experience of my life. From the very first moment I walked into the first meeting, and I got to sit with my heroes. I sat beside Alan Langer. Fatty was in the room. Arthur Beetson was there. Wally was there. Mel. These are my heroes. And every young player would say the same. That first camp, you mix with your heroes, and the enormity of what you are doing strikes home. And then you realise how much you can't wait to actually honour those that helped you be there, and pay respect to all those that have walked before you and around you. So that first meeting, I've walked back to my room. I stayed in the same room in the same hotel, room 610, for my 17 Origin games. My first roomie was the late great Peter Jackson. I've walked back to that room, sat on the bed, and I've got this tracksuit that I've just been given. My first Queensland tracksuit. I've trained since I was 15 for this, nearly every day. And I'm thinking about all the people that helped me be in the room, my family, my former teammates, my current teammates, coaches, and Jacko's walked in the room. And there he is, a guy that's had his life and done what he's done, achieved what he's achieved. He's looking at this young prototype, and someone that's just raw and wants it. He walked up and he put his hand on my shoulder. He said, knew what I was thinking. He goes, "Welcome to the Queensland family. Next Wednesday night, you go and prove you fucking belong in this family." I said, "Jacko." I belong, mate. I belong. I said, "Let's go train. Let's go train for Queensland." He said, "Train? Train? We don't train." I said, "Well, what do we do?" He goes, "We go to the pub, son." My first Origin game, we drank till 4 a.m. for the first 4 days. We sobered up for 2 and we played on the 7th. Worst prep ever in my life. I think I played one of my greatest ever games.
Scoring a try on debut couldn't be any better than that, could it?
No, it was 10 minutes in. The great Mark Coyne wrapped around, followed, I think, Mel around, and I saw it unfold. And Graham Lowe was great coach for me. He just said, "Billy, I know you're fit enough. If you read the game, just be everywhere." So I thought, how good was this? Because at North it was a lot more regimented. So I said, how good was this? And I just saw the opportunity. I could see what was unfolding in front of me, and I just followed the play, and Corny flicked up a pass. I say I got it 50 metres out, but I didn't. I got about 1 metre out, stepped over the top of the defence, scored, and got up and went, "How you going?" It was a dream come true after 10 minutes. But the noise, that's what got me. The other great thing about that first game, besides playing with your heroes, is just the noise of the house next door. Lang Park, as we call it then, or was then. Wow. There is no greater place to play rugby league.
Well, you played 17 games for Queensland. Arguably one of the most famous series you played in was the 95 series, the Neville Nobodies series, and the famous Queenslander chant as you're walking down the tunnel in that 2-0 win over New South Wales after half-time. Tell us how that came about.
Well, that was great series. The storyline's important because the narrative is imperative because the Super League war rages. And Queensland, who have always a larger pot of players to pick, a smaller pot of players to pick from, can't pick Broncos, Canberra and Canterbury players. So we can't pick Alan Langer, Steve Wilders, Kevin Wilders, Steve Renouf, etc., etc. So we've got this core of players, but we have struggled to find enough players to fill the pot. And I think the story, which obviously would have been told already about Benny Eichen, he got a start because there was no other NRL player possible to be able to be picked, first grade player to be able to be picked. And so he was playing under 18s for Queensland and had a couple of games off the bench for the Gold Coast Chargers, I think they might have been called then. That's where he got his start. So that's how, in a sense, we were looking at the bottom of the barrel. And the thing about those 18 players that played that year, only Dale Shearer had played for Australia, as you'd know, but he hadn't played for 5 years. The other 17 of us had not played for Australia. I think 13 of us went on and played for Australia. But we had this group of young people who believed, didn't have any record like the previous sides I'd seen and played with. But from the get-go, we had this belief. 1995 personifies belief. From the very first moment, the very first camp, the magic was definitely established because you had Fatty Vorton, who I think had coached a couple of games for Brisbane rep side, but he might have 1 or 2 jobs, coaching jobs, which was nothing. We had him, who's a passionate Queenslander, with, I believe, the most passionate Queenslander I'd met, and that's even above Peter Jackson, the great Chris Choppy Close. Manager, coach came together and they formed this amazing mix. And that very first meeting, the passion they used, there was no contemplation that this team was a second fiddle team. This was our team. It was a Queensland team. And it didn't matter who they were. We knew they were good. They're always good. With all due respect, they're good. But they weren't us. We were representing Queensland and we took that chance and we did what we had to do and we did it.
Who had the biggest influence on your career?
That's a great question. I'll probably have to hedge a few things there. My mum, Johnny Lewis, taught me to be super fit. And from a player's perspective, I'd say probably either Peter Jackson or the great Pat Jarvis. One about belief and skill and rising to the occasion. The other one about being consistently tough. And Pat Jarvis's words to me: "You deserve nothing in life. You've got to earn it. You've got to make it and take it every day." And that's my belief is you've got to go and earn the opportunity and then you've got to earn the right to take it. And when you don't, all you're doing is helping the opposition because if they've got that philosophy and you don't, you become lazy and they eventually come over the top of you. So there's some key people that played a part in my life and what an enjoyable trip it's been.
What do you reckon, Billy, if that 8-year-old kid lying on the floor waiting for Origin 1 back at Wallangarra, if someone said to him on that day, you're going to go on and play 17 games for Queensland, you're going to win the Ron McAuliffe Medal in 1994, you're going to play over 200 NRL games, you're going to play for your country, what do you reckon that kid at Wallangarra would have thought?
You're dreaming. But, I'm a great believer. Dream, and keep dreaming. Just if you want to live the dream, you've got to have the courage to follow it. And it's not easy, but that's the difference. If it was easy, we'd all do it. Yeah, I think that kid and I would get on real good.
Well, FOG number 75, Billy Moore, congratulations on an extraordinary career and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOGS Queenslander podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our